Never be yourself in a job interview. If you click that, you probably already know something is off. You've done the prep. You researched the company. You had good answers. You followed up, and it still didn't convert. Here's what's actually happening. The interviewer is not grading your answers. They are feeling something. And that feeling, not your resume, not your credentials, not your prep, is what determines whether you get the offer. I've been on both sides of this table. I've walked out of 8 interviews already knowing the job was mine. And I've hired people in 5 seconds before they finish saying hello. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what interviewers are feeling, why it has almost nothing to do with your answers, and how to create the right experience deliberately, so the results stop being a guess. Let's get into it. Think about the last interview you prepared for. You probably spent most of your time on answers, thinking through your examples, polishing your talking points, rehearsing your response to "tell me about yourself." All of that prep starts the moment the interviewer asks the first question. But the decision starts the moment they see you. Studies put the number at 69% of hiring decisions made within the first 5 minutes. Some put it at the first 10 seconds of dialogue. I've hired people myself, and I can tell you it was 5 seconds, sometimes less. The way someone says hello, the way they carry themselves walking into the room, whether there's genuine warmth in their face or just managed anxiety. You know it almost instantly. And here's the uncomfortable part. Once that impression forms, the rest of the interview is confirmation bias. The interviewer is no longer evaluating you. They are collecting evidence to justify the feeling they already have. If the feeling was good, they'll find reasons to hire you. If it wasn't, they'll find reasons not to. And you'll never know exactly why. This means most candidates are preparing for the wrong moment. They're preparing for the questions, but the decision is being made in the hallway, in the waiting room, the second you walk through the door. Call this the glance test. You pass or fail it before you've said a single word about your experience. The candidate reviewing notes on their phone until the moment the interviewer appears, already behind. The candidate who's warm, present, and harried, who seems they were born for this room, already ahead. Stop preparing only for questions. Start preparing for the moment before the first question. Now, I want to zoom out because what I just described is a symptom of something deeper. Most professions have a mental model of the interview as a test. You answer questions. The interviewer scores your answers. The highest score wins. That model is wrong. Hiring is an emotional decision, justified with logic afterward. Harvard Business Review research describes emotions as powerful and predictable drivers of decision making. Often unconscious, often unwanted, but driving the outcome anyway. Springer Nature researchers studying HR professionals found that even the most trained, experienced hiring specialists rely on gut feelings when making their final call. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard shows that when we meet a stranger, we evaluate them on exactly 2 dimensions: warmth and competence. And we evaluate warmth first, before competence, before qualifications, before anything on your resume. When candidates have similar skills, which at a senior level they almost always do, the more likable person gets hired close to 90% of the time. Think about that. You could be the most technically capable person in the candidate pool and lose to someone who made the interviewer feel better. The unspoken question driving every single hiring decision is, do I want to work with this person? Not, are they qualified? Not, do they have the right certifications? Do I want to work with this person? That's not a logical question, it's an emotional one. Here's an analogy that might land differently. Think back to gym class as a kid. 2 captains picking teams. Did they pick the most athletic classmates? No, they picked their best friends. And as we get older, we do the same thing. We call it culture fit. We call it the right energy. We call it instinct. But it's the same thing. We choose people we want to be around, people we trust, people we genuinely like. The most qualified candidate is not guaranteed anything. The candidate who creates the right feeling almost always wins. So what does this mean for how you prepare? It means you stop optimizing for the test being graded, because the test being graded is not your answers. The test being graded, how did this person make me feel? I call this the experience play. Every other candidate walking into that interview is preparing what to say. You're going to prepare what the interviewer will feel. Not of performance, not manipulation. A deliberate decision made before you walk in about which experience you're going to create. And that experience has 3 specific feelings in a specific order. Miss one and the whole thing collapses. These 3 feelings work in sequence. You cannot skip ahead. You cannot manufacture excitement in someone who doesn't feel safe. You cannot create curiosity in someone who isn't already excited. The order matters. The first feeling the interviewer needs is safety. Not safety in some abstract sense. Very specific, professional safety. The feeling that translates to, if I hire this person, they will not embarrass me. Because hiring is a personal bet. The interviewer puts their name behind you. They tell their team, their manager, their stakeholders, this is the person I chose. If you fail, they look bad. If you're difficult, they own that. If you turn out to be a risk, they made that call. So before any formal question is asked, the interviewer is asking a question they'll never say out loud. Is this person safe? Candidates who feel too nervous, too strange, too unpredictable, fail this test immediately, regardless of their qualifications. Now, here's the counterintuitive part. You don't create safety by being cautious. You create it by being in control. Interviewers are not trained to interview. Most of them are doing their best with no formal process, no calibration, no clear rubric. When a candidate walks in confident, warm, and genuinely in control of the room, the interviewer's nervous system relaxes. They actually appreciate it. They want to see a candidate who is comfortable, who takes charge, who steers. The problem is that most candidates are so intimidated, so locked into survival mode, that their actual personality never comes through. And the personality, the warmth, the humor, the confidence, was the exact thing that would have created safety. The intimidation buried it. To signal safety, you need to speak their language before they've had the chance to test whether you know it. Reference their industry, their competitors, their current challenges. Use the vocabulary that tells their brain, this person already belongs here. Call this pattern matching. When the brain hears its own language spoken back fluently, it pattern matches and concludes, this is one of us. This person is safe. Do that in the first 5 minutes, before the first formal question, and you've already cleared the first filter. Safety gets you in the room, but it doesn't get you the offer. Safety is the floor. There's a second feeling almost no candidate creates, and it's the one that makes the interviewer lean forward. The second feeling is excitement. Specifically, this feeling, I can already see what this person is going to do for us. Most candidates speak in past tense. Every answer is a retrospective. I led a team of 12. I shipped a product that increased revenue by 40%. I managed a migration that took 8 months. All true, all impressive, and all asking the interviewer to do something difficult. Take that past and map it onto an all true, all impressive, and all asking the interviewer to do something difficult. Take that past and map it onto an imagined future. Most interviewers can't do that reliably. It requires imagination, confidence in their own judgment, and a certain amount of mental energy. And by the time they are interviewing their 6th candidate, that energy is almost gone. The candidate who creates excitement does something different. They go so deep into their examples, so specific, so owned, so detailed, that the interviewer doesn't have to imagine anything. The connection is obvious. There's a principle that gets applied in hiring circles. You can tell instantly whether someone was truly responsible for a result or just adjacent to it, based on the level of detail they provide. Surface answers signal surface ownership. If you say, we shipped the product and it performed well, you might have been there. If you say, I pushed back on the launch date by 3 weeks because the load testing showed failure at 40% capacity, negotiated that internally, and we shipped clean, you owned it. No one needs to imagine your future impact when your past impact is that specific. The ROI is already visible. Here's a story that makes this real. I once walked into a 5-hour interview for a company that builds software for golf clubs. I had no idea what they did. I didn't even know what a tea time was. I thought they were talking about afternoon tea. The coding language they used, never touched it. I found it on Stack Overflow mid-exam. The tic-tac-toe question on the whiteboard, I wiped it off the board when a new interviewer walked in and said, we just finished that. Let's move on. I stayed at that company for 4.5 years, coding in a completely different language than the one I was tested on. The technical gap was enormous. It didn't matter, because what the interviewer experienced in that room, the energy, the resourcefulness, the genuine warmth, told them everything they needed to know about whether I would show up. It is not about knowledge, skills, experience, certifications, or education. It comes down to your attitude and the way you build that relationship. When you finish answering a strong question, you don't stop. You say, I actually have another example that I think you'd find relevant. Would you like to hear it? And they almost always say yes. Because now, you're not just answering their questions. You're running the conversation on your terms, about your strength. That is how you make someone see the ROI. Not by pivoting to future language, but by being so present and so deep in your own truth that the interviewer can't imagine the role without you. That shift from, could this work, to, I want this to work, is the peak moment of the interview. It's what they carry into the decision meeting. But there's one more feeling, and this is the one that makes walking away feel like a loss. The third feeling is curiosity. Specifically this. I want to keep talking to this person. Most candidates front load everything. Every answer is complete, thorough, fully resolved. They've prepared so hard that they've eliminated every possible follow-up question. And in doing so, they've eliminated the most valuable thing that can happen in an interview, a genuine conversation. Curiosity isn't created by withholding. It's created by depth. When you go so specific, so layered, so genuinely invested in your examples, the interviewer senses there's more. Not because you hid it, because there genuinely is more. And they want it. There's a specific moment where this happens. The interviewer finishes a question. You give a full answer. And then instead of waiting, you say, actually, I was thinking about another example during your question that I think connects to this. Want me to walk you through it? They say yes. And now the interview has extended on your terms about something you know deeply and feel confident in. That is how you create the feeling that this conversation doesn't need to end. Now, there are things that kill this feeling instantly. The biggest one, asking, so what are the next steps? This is like going on a genuinely great first date and then asking, so are we going to see each other again? If you have to ask, something went wrong. If it went well, you both already know. The question doesn't gather information. It signals doubt. It tells the interviewer, I'm not sure how this went. And that uncertainty is contagious. The questions at the end of an interview are not for gathering information about the company. That happens after you have the offer. While you're still in the room, every question you ask is an opportunity to plant one more seed. If it doesn't sell you in some way, it's a wasted question. Stay present, stay curious about them, let the conversation breathe. And when the interview ends, if the three feelings have been built, it won't end with a handshake. And we'll be in touch. It will end with energy, with warmth, with something that feels unfinished in the best possible way. That ending, warm, leaning forward, wanting more, is the last impression the interviewer carries into every conversation that follows. I've walked out of 8 interviews in my career knowing the job was mine before the offer came. That's not confidence. That's what it feels like when the 3 feelings are all there. Safety, excitement, curiosity. And the interviewer has nothing left to doubt. So let's put this together practically. Before your next interview, do 3 things. First, identify 3 ways to show you already belong in their world. Their language, their competitors, their current challenges. Use them in the opening minutes before the first formal question. That creates safety. Second, take your 3 strongest professional examples and go deeper than you ever have. Know every detail. Know what you pushed back on. Know what you do differently. And when you answer, ask if they'd like to hear another one. That creates excitement. Third, stay present. Don't review tactics in your head while they're talking. Don't rehearse your next answer while they're finishing their question. Be in the room. The curiosity that keeps them wanting more can only happen when you're actually there. The next question most people have after this, okay, but what do I say when the conversation starts? What exactly does that opening look like? That's what the next video covers in full. How to take control of the first 5 minutes. What to say, what not to say, and the one move that creates safety before a single formal question is asked. It's linked right here. Watch it next.